In this smartphone show, there's news of the launch of the Nokia E51, the smallest smartphone in the world, plus of course the Apple iPhone for UK and Europe, a preview to Symbian's smartphone show in London Docklands, and a hands-on review of the UBiQUiO 503G, a professional smartphone with more than its fair share of flaws. As I'm sure you know by now, Apple has formally announced the iPhone for the UK, France and Germany, arriving in a couple of months' time. In the UK, they're partnering with O2, starting at £280 plus £35 a month for 18 months minimum. Gulp. It's worth noting that, contrary to everyone's hopes, they didn't add 3G for Europe, so it's the same old Edge and GPRS-based device from the USA. Still, I'm sure it'll be a good seller for the beginner-friendliness of the interface and the kudos of the Apple name. Palm, a company dogged by troubles mainly of their own making over the last few years, seems to have a few new devices up its sleeve. The Centro that I reported on in the last show still hasn't been formally announced, but the Trio 500V has. It's a slimmed-down Trio 750V in many ways, but is notable for the better camera at 2 megapixels, an even tinier QWERTY keyboard, and a Windows Mobile 6 standard, i.e. they've dropped the stylus and the touchscreen. Probably for the best, I say, in a package this small. Very new is the Pantex C810, amazingly, and I have no idea how this actually works. You get a numeric keypad on one side and a QWERTY keypad on another at 90 degrees. Running Windows Mobile Standard, i.e. the smartphone edition, it'll be arriving in the USA on AT&T with full 3G, HSDPA, a 2 megapixel camera, Bluetooth and built-in GPS. I'm not sure I'll really believe all this until I see one in the flesh, mind you. The North American optimised version of the Nokia N95 is now 100% official. It has the USA 3G frequencies, 4 times the free RAM, and a higher capacity battery compared to the current imported N95. Price will be $700 SIM-free. And staying with Nokia, they've announced the Symbian and S60-based E51, officially the smallest smartphone in the world, packing HSDPA and Wi-Fi into a body that's only 61 cubic centimetres in volume and 12 millimetres thick. Astounding. Of course, the screen's on the small size as well, but you can't have everything. There's a very full software package and a long overdue overhaul of the S60 menu key, now sensibly appearing as a home icon. Much more intuitive, Nokia. Now roll that into future devices. You've probably noticed that the smartphone show has been sponsored for quite a while by Symbian, makers of the OS that powers over 2/3 of the smartphones on the planet. But did you know that Symbian put on an annual event in London, free to all, to showcase the smartphone world? Of course you did. You've been a watcher of this show for ages, and you'll remember show 17 when I reported back from the 2006 London show. But just in case you missed it, here's what's going down and what you're going to miss if you can't make it. Incidentally, don't be confused by the similar names. Symbian called their event the Smartphone Show, whereas you're watching the Smartphones Show. Anyway, there are over half a dozen invite-only social gatherings on the evenings of October the 15th and 16th, organised by various interface companies and device manufacturers, but the one you really want to be at is the All About Symbian pub meet on the 15th, starting at about 6:30 p.m. Firstly, because it's free and open to all, and secondly, because I'll be there, along with a large number of other industry bloggers and luminaries. Don't let the phrase pub meet put you off. The usual location, the Cross Keys, is huge. In addition to chatting to others, there are a few brief pitches and lots of formal and informal device demos, a hands-on time if you want it, and a door prize draw, so bring a business card with some huge prizes, including smartphones. As I say, totally free to get in. The next couple of days, the 16th and 17th, are the main smartphone show itself, also completely free and held in London's XL Centre in Docklands. There are keynotes by the likes of Symbian, Nokia, Motorola, RIM, NTT Docomo and Sony Ericsson, starting at 10 a.m. on the Tuesday and Wednesday mornings, and these are free to all. The smartphone show's laid out in typical computer show format with booths and stalls to visit, plus 3 enclosed theatres housing talks on services, applications, future technologies, and all things developer, that sort of thing. Once into the XL Centre, there's quite a bit to see on the various device and services stands. Most run live demos covering everything from new devices to productivity or email applications to programmer development environments, and you can usually sit down to watch these. There are plenty of new smartphones to play with, most running Symbian OS, but not exclusively, usually tethered to the stands to stop people running off with them. There's usually a refreshment stall, but you'll probably have to pay for your drinks, of course. Look out for show freebies, by the way. As you progress around the smartphone show and visit the various stands, you'll pick up all sorts of free pens, notebooks, non-slip mats, USB flash disks and sweets. Even better, in 2006 there was a treasure trail organised whereby if you visited a certain sequence of stands, you got entered in a draw to win a number of current smartphones. If you're into good food, music and partying, then note there's also a free party at a quote secret location put on by Symbian on the Tuesday evening. You just need to have registered for it first at the show itself. The Wednesday tends to be a bit quieter, with a proportionally greater focus on the real business of the event, the networking between people in the industry, and the myriad of seminars and discussion panels, although these are generally open to all as well. So if you have any time free on the evening of the 15th or during the 16th or 17th of October, then stop by London and catch up with both myself and most of the rest of the smartphone world. Now, normally when I get devices in for review, they're in a pretty finished state. Even the E90 prototype basically worked, which is not a verb I'd be confident applying to the next test device, the UBiQUiO 503G. Unashamedly aimed at the professional user, the UB ticks all the right boxes but fails spectacularly in far too many ways. On the plus side, there's a nice clicky QWERTY keyboard, very similar to that of the Palm Trio, and there's a great jog wheel on the side for scrolling down screens and lists. There's a stylus and touchscreen for use with Windows Mobile 6 Professional, plus HSDPA connectivity for the fastest 3G speeds, and the 503G feels great in the hand. It really does, weighing an even 150 grams. But where to start with all the flaws? Take the keyboard, for example. There are dedicated arrow keys, utterly bizarre when there's a D-pad an inch above them, and the inclusion of arrow keys means that even common punctuation such as comma and full stop are relegated to function key presses. Even worse, the use of silver key domes and a white backlight means that a lot of the key legends are basically invisible when you're typing, which is, well, exactly when you want to see which key is which. Now, what about the 2.4-inch screen? In theory, you'd think this would be better for a business device, and indeed for email and document work it is. But so many screens and dialogues in Windows Mobile 6 just don't fit or work right, and there are sometimes mismatches between what's possible with the D-pad and what's possible by getting out the stylus, e.g. to scroll down the last few millimetres of a screen. The use of a resistive touchscreen also means lousy contrast outdoors, especially in sunlight. Then there are all the software things that just don't work properly, almost certainly because of bugs in early firmware. I checked for a newer release on the UBiQUiO website, but found none, by the way. A dedicated menu key, mimicking the right function key in most apps, did absolutely nothing at all in this firmware. Letter shortcuts on the Today's screen work some of the time, but not others. Key events were regularly missed in all applications. Wi-Fi wouldn't work until I put a SIM card in. The battery gauge was spectacularly unreliable, and the Pictures and Videos application refused to display thumbnails of any of my photos. Phew. Before dismissing the 503G completely, though, it's worth noting that the Wi-Fi did work very well once I got it working. I'm guessing the HSDPA did too, although there's no icon to tell you when you're in a 3.5G area. There's a 2-megapixel stills camera with no flash, but with a handy macro switch letting you snap close-up items. Video recording is poor quality and at quarter VGA, by the way. The battery's a whopping 1500 mAh, so it should keep you working for a few days at least. Expansion is via microSD, and there's a smallish 26 megabytes of RAM left after booting, which will affect multitasking and which seems a bit stingy given the pricing at almost £400 SIM-free and the professional target market. A good many of the issues in this review can be fixed in software, of course, so if you're considering the UBiQUiO 503G for its connectivity virtues, then wait a few months and check for recent firmware updates on their website.